On November 22nd, 2016, federal agents raided a quiet suburban home in Utah. Inside, they found something truly terrifying: a secret drug lab hidden in the basement, where deadly pills were being made. The pills looked like regular painkillers, but they were laced with a powerful drug called fentanyl, a substance so dangerous that even a tiny amount can kill you. This wasn't some massive, high-tech operation. It was run by a single young man, Shamo, who would later be known as the Pharma master working from his bedroom. Shamo built a drug empire in less than 2 years, selling thousands of these deadly pills every day and earning over $100,000 daily. The pills he made and sold online led to the deaths of at least 90 people, though the true number may never be known. What's shocking is how simple it all started. Just a computer, a few friends, and some dark web connections were all he needed to begin this dangerous journey. By the time the authorities caught up with him, he had turned his quiet life into a nightmare for countless families across the country. Shamo was not a man born into crime. In fact, his early life seemed pretty typical. Raised in a religious family in suburban Utah, Aaron was an Eagle Scout and a good student. But as he grew older, things started to change. College was a struggle for Aaron, and he eventually dropped out, unable to find direction in his life. It was during this aimless period that Aaron stumbled upon the dark web, a hidden part of the internet where anonymity reigns and illegal activities flourish. The dark web fascinated Aaron. He quickly realized that it offered a way to make money, big money, without leaving the comfort of his home. It didn't take long for Aaron to dive into the world of drug trafficking. He started small, ordering fentanyl from suppliers in China. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that's incredibly potent. Just a few grains can be deadly. Despite knowing the risks, Aaron saw an opportunity to make quick cash. Aaron began by purchasing basic supplies: latex gloves, postage materials, gelatin capsules, and a pill press. He learned how to mix the fentanyl with other substances to create counterfeit oxycodone pills. These pills looked just like the real thing, but they were far more dangerous. With his first batch of pills ready, Aaron set up a storefront on Alphabay, a well-known marketplace on the dark web, under the alias Pharma Master. Business started slowly at first. Aaron's pills had to build a reputation, but once word got out, orders started flooding in. The dark web allowed Aaron to operate anonymously, and he took full advantage of it. He was careful to keep his real identity hidden, using encrypted messaging and cryptocurrency to conduct transactions. The money began to roll in, and Aaron's operation grew rapidly. To meet the increasing demand, Aaron expanded his operation. He bought a more sophisticated pill press and increased his orders of fentanyl. He also started to involve a small circle of trusted friends in his operation. They helped with packaging and shipping the pills, and Aaron rewarded them handsomely for their loyalty. But as his operation grew, so did the risks. Aaron was making money hand over fist, but the pills he was selling were killing people. Fentanyl is so potent that even a small mistake in dosing can be lethal. Reports of overdoses started to trickle in, and soon they became a flood. But Aaron was so focused on his profits that he ignored the warnings. He saw himself as a businessman, not a drug dealer. His empire was growing, and he wasn't about to let anything stand in his way. By the end of 2016, Aaron's operation was pulling in over $100,000 a day. He had gone from being a broke college dropout to a millionaire almost overnight. He bought a house, a luxury car, and started living a lavish lifestyle. But his success came at a steep cost. The people buying his pills didn't know they were taking fentanyl, and the overdose deaths continued to mount. Aaron knew he was playing a dangerous game, but he thought he could stay ahead of the authorities. Little did he know that his time was running out. As Aaron Shamo's drug empire grew, he began to take bigger and bigger risks. The demand for his pills was skyrocketing, and Aaron was determined to keep up with it. He knew that to continue making money, he needed more supplies and more people involved in his operation. But with each step he took to expand, he also increased his chances of getting caught. Aaron's first move was to secure a steady supply of fentanyl. He had been ordering small amounts from China, but now he needed much more. He made contact with suppliers who could ship large quantities of the drug, hidden in innocuous packages that wouldn't raise suspicion at customs. The fentanyl was shipped in powder form, which Aaron would then mix with other substances to create his counterfeit pills. The process was dangerous. One mistake could lead to a fatal overdose, but Aaron was willing to take the risk. To handle the increased production, Aaron upgraded his pill press. The new machine was capable of churning out thousands of pills a day, and Aaron kept it running almost non-stop. He also brought more people into his operation. These were friends he trusted, people who wouldn't ask too many questions. They worked in shifts, packaging the pills in small bags, sealing them with a vacuum sealer, and preparing them for shipment. The pills were then sent out all over the country, hidden in plain sight among the everyday mail. But as Aaron's operation grew, so did the number of overdose deaths linked to his pills. People who bought what they thought were regular painkillers were unknowingly taking fentanyl, and the results were often fatal. One of the most tragic cases involved a young man named Gavin Keblish. Gavin was a 23-year-old counselor who worked with children in foster care. After suffering a serious injury, he turned to the dark web to buy painkillers. What he received were pills from Aaron Shamo's Pharma master storefront, pills that were laced with fentanyl. Gavin took just one, and it was enough to kill him. Despite the growing death toll, Aaron continued to expand his business. He saw the reports of overdoses, but he didn't stop. The money was too good, and he was addicted to the lifestyle it provided. He started branching out, selling not just oxycodone, but also other drugs like Xanax, Valium, and MDMA. His operation was becoming more complex, and he brought in more people to help manage it. But with more people involved, the risk of getting caught also increased. Aaron's empire was built on secrecy, but the bigger it grew, the harder it was to keep that secrecy intact. The dark web was supposed to offer anonymity, but in reality it was far from foolproof. Every transaction left a trail, and it was only a matter of time before that trail led back to Aaron. The DEA and other federal agencies were starting to crack down on dark web drug markets, and Aaron's operation was becoming a prime target. The first crack in Aaron's operation came in July 2016, when a package from China was intercepted by U.S. Customs. Inside was a shipment of fentanyl, addressed to one of Aaron's associates. This triggered an investigation that would eventually lead to Aaron's downfall. Over the next few months, federal agents began tracking shipments, monitoring online activity, and gathering evidence. Aaron was careful, but he couldn't cover all his tracks. The authorities were closing in, and it was only a matter of time before they made their move. By late 2016, Aaron Shamo's drug empire was at its peak. He was selling tens of thousands of pills each month, raking in millions of dollars. But with success came increased scrutiny. The DEA, FBI, and other federal agencies had launched a full-scale investigation into dark web drug trafficking, and Aaron's operation was in their crosshairs. The investigation into Aaron Shamo's operation was methodical and relentless. Federal agents began by tracing the fentanyl shipments from China, following the trail of money and drugs as it wound its way through the dark web. They also started monitoring the activities of Aaron's associates, building a case piece by piece. They intercepted packages, placed informants within Aaron's network, and began to close the noose around him. On November 22, 2016, federal agents made their move. They raided Aaron Shamo's home in Cottonwood Heights, Utah. What they found inside was a shocking testament to the scale of Aaron's operation. In the basement, they discovered a pill press, large quantities of fentanyl, and thousands of pills ready to be shipped out. The agents also found $1.2 million in cash hidden away, as well as a stash of bitcoins worth millions more. Aaron was caught completely off guard. He had always known that this day might come, but he had convinced himself that he could stay one step ahead of the authorities. Now, as he was led away in handcuffs, it was clear that his empire had finally come crashing down. The man who had once controlled one of the largest drug operations on the dark web was now facing the full weight of the law. In the days that followed, the full extent of Aaron's crimes became clear. The authorities revealed that Aaron's pills had been linked to at least 90 deaths across the United States, though the true number may never be known. The investigation also uncovered the sheer scale of Aaron's operation. He had been producing and selling tens of thousands of pills each month, earning millions of dollars while leaving a trail of death and destruction in his wake. The trial of Aaron Shamo was a media sensation. The courtroom was filled with families who had lost loved ones to Aaron's pills, and the testimony was heartbreaking. Parents spoke of children who had died from overdoses, of lives shattered by addiction, and of the pain and suffering that Aaron's greed had caused. The evidence against Aaron was overwhelming, and it was clear that he would spend the rest of his life in prison. But Aaron wasn't the only one facing justice. The investigation also led to the arrest of several of Aaron's associates, many of whom were charged with crimes related to the drug operation. Some cooperated with the authorities in exchange for lighter sentences, while others were sentenced to years in prison. The case also had a broader impact on the ongoing fight against the opioid epidemic in the United States. It highlighted the dangers of fentanyl and the dark web, and it spurred law enforcement agencies to redouble their efforts to combat illegal drug trafficking. For Aaron Shamo, the dream of wealth and success had turned into a nightmare. He had gone from being a regular guy in Utah to one of the most infamous drug traffickers in the United States. His operation, once small and seemingly harmless, had grown into a massive enterprise that spread death and addiction across the country. But now, it was all falling apart. After Aaron's arrest, the investigation into his operation revealed the full extent of his crimes. Federal agents discovered that Aaron had been responsible for producing and distributing over 500,000 fentanyl-laced pills across the United States. These pills had been linked to at least 90 deaths, though the true number was likely much higher. The scale of Aaron's operation was staggering, and it highlighted the growing threat of synthetic opioids like fentanyl in the ongoing opioid epidemic. The trial was a lengthy and complex process. Aaron faced a total of 13 charges, including running a continuing criminal enterprise, aiding and abetting the importation of controlled substances, and possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. The most serious charge, running a continuing criminal enterprise, carried a mandatory life sentence. The prosecution's case was strong. They presented evidence of Aaron's involvement in every aspect of the drug operation, from importing fentanyl to manufacturing the pills to distributing them through the dark web. They also showed how Aaron had used his profits to live a lavish lifestyle, buying luxury cars, taking expensive vacations, and gambling in Las Vegas. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was filled with the families of Aaron's victims. They listened as the prosecution detailed the devastating impact of Aaron's actions, and many of them took the stand to share their own stories. Parents spoke of the pain of losing a child to an overdose, of the lives that had been destroyed by addiction, and of the anger they felt toward the man who had caused so much suffering. The testimonies were emotional and powerful, and they left a lasting impression on everyone in the courtroom. Aaron's defense team tried to argue that he had not intended to harm anyone, that he had simply been trying to make a living in a difficult economy. They claimed that Aaron was not a hardened criminal, but a young man who had made some bad decisions. But the evidence against Aaron was overwhelming. The jury took just a few days to reach their verdict. Aaron Shamo was found guilty on 12 of the 13 charges against him. The sentencing was swift and severe. Aaron was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole, the mandatory punishment for running a continuing criminal enterprise. The judge made it clear that Aaron's actions had caused untold harm, and that he would spend the rest of his life in prison for his crimes. The downfall of Aaron Shamo marked the end of one of the largest and most successful drug operations on the dark web. But for the families of those who had died from Aaron's pills, the pain was just beginning. The full scope of Aaron's crimes became apparent as the investigation continued. It was revealed that his pills had been linked to at least 90 deaths across the United States, though the true number may never be known. The trial was a lengthy and emotional process. Families of the victims came forward to testify about the devastating impact of Aaron's actions. They spoke of loved ones who had been taken from them too soon, all because of a young man who was more interested in making money than in the lives of others. The stories were heartbreaking, and they painted a clear picture of the damage that Aaron's greed had caused. Aaron's defense team tried to argue that he hadn't meant to harm anyone, that he had simply been a young man who got caught up in something much bigger than he could handle. They claimed that Aaron was just trying to make a living, and that he had never intended for anyone to die from the pills he sold. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. The prosecutors presented a clear and damning case. Aaron had knowingly and willingly manufactured and sold deadly drugs, and he had done so purely for profit. During the trial, the impact of Aaron's actions was laid bare. Families who had lost loved ones because of his pills spoke about the pain and suffering they had endured. Parents described the agony of losing a child to a drug overdose, while others shared stories of lives shattered by addiction. The courtroom was filled with grief and anger, and it was clear that no amount of time in prison could ever undo the damage Aaron had caused. The jury deliberated for several days, but in the end, they found Aaron guilty on almost all counts. The most serious charge was running a continuing criminal enterprise, which carried a mandatory life sentence. The judge handed down the sentence, and Aaron was sent to federal prison, where he would spend the rest of his life. But Aaron's story didn't end with his conviction. The fallout from his actions continued to ripple through the lives of those he had affected. Many of the people who had worked for Aaron were also arrested and charged with various crimes related to the drug operation. Some of them cooperated with the authorities in exchange for lighter sentences, but others were sentenced to years in prison. The case also had a broader impact on the ongoing fight against the opioid epidemic in the United States. Aaron's operation was one of the largest and most successful dark web drug operations ever uncovered, and it highlighted the dangers of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. In the wake of Aaron's conviction, law enforcement agencies stepped up their efforts to crack down on dark web drug markets, and the public became more aware of the risks associated with buying drugs online. For the families of Aaron's victims, the pain of losing a loved one would never go away. They were left with the knowledge that their children, siblings, and friends had died because of one man's greed. Many of them have since become advocates for stronger regulations and enforcement against illegal drug trafficking, hoping to prevent other families from experiencing the same kind of loss. In the end, Aaron Shamo's story is a tragic example of how quickly a life can spiral out of control when greed and indifference take hold. What started as a simple operation in a quiet suburban home turned into a nationwide drug empire that left a trail of death and destruction in its wake. Aaron's actions serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of the dark web, the deadly potential of synthetic opioids like fentanyl, and the devastating consequences that can result when someone chooses to ignore the value of human life. Aaron Shamo may be behind bars for the rest of his life, but the impact of his crimes will be felt for years to come. His story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of the opioid crisis and the lengths some will go to profit from the suffering of others. And for those who lost loved ones to his pills, the pain is a daily reminder of the high price of greed.